找到人生新的方向，但是你需要跟老板辞职了，这绝对不是一个 easy conversation。但是所有的人这是一定必经之路。那今天就来听听看正确辞职的方式以及实用的片语。Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管双语沟通力的 podcast。我们希望带给大家最实用的沟通工具，包括了成功人士对全球市场的分享、职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。Hi, I'm Sherry, founder of Executive Plus. As a language trainer and certified coach, I've trained hundreds of managers from Fortune 500 companies such as Dior, Google, Deloitte, and Yahoo.
And I'm Nick, Director of Communication Strategy at Presentality. I've helped startups raise millions of US dollars in funding and train the executives of publicly listed companies to present on the global stage.
Welcome to the Executive Plus podcast,
where you can take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Executive Plus podcast. Now, if you've been listening for the last few weeks, we've talked a lot about how to switch positions, how to change your job, and how to find a new career path. Today, we're going to talk about the complete opposite, which is what happens if you want to leave the job.
这个大家应该都会经过 这是必经之路啦。我觉得 quitting your job could be a very amazing new beginning, right? It's not an end, it's a new beginning to your next chapter in your career. 所以今天我想要透过一些我们的本身的一些经验，一些 personal experience， 然后分享给大家一些蛮实用的片语啊，还有语言，你该怎么样，当你坐下来必须要面对你的老板的时候，你可以怎么说。那今天呢，这个 episode it's inspired by this video that I watched. 那这个 video 它是 Harvard Business Review，那我也会把这个 video 的 link 放在我们的 description box 里面。So let's talk about what is the number one thing when we have to think about, okay, I need to quit my job.
The first thing that we want to share with you before we actually get into the language tips of how to do this is actually, again, the thought process behind how you want to approach this. Because if you're clear on why you want to go, then it's a lot easier to articulate, it's a lot easier to be clear with the people about why you're quitting. A lot of times when we want to quit, it's out of frustration, it's after being burned out or being tired in the job. But if you just go into the office and be like, I quit, I'm tired,
yeah,
I'm sick of this.
You're going to regret that.
You're going to regret that. It's not going to feel great. In the end, for a lot of people, when you switch careers, it's actually better to have your former boss on your side, whether it's a letter of recommendation, whether it's a connection, etc. So just going into that situation tired or frustrated, even if it's true, will not help you in the end. So there's a few questions that you can start to ask yourself to think more about what is your motivation behind leaving? What is your motivation behind quitting? The first question is just simply, am I working for the right organization? I think we've all been in that situation where, especially very early in your career, you might just take a job because it's in the right field or it seems convenient to start that job and it will be temporary, and then you may be there for multiple years, or close to a decade, and still wondering whether that's the place that you want to be. For example, my mom. My mom switched her career in her 40s, and she had started in the original corporation when she was in college. So from like 20 all the way into her 40s, that was just her first job. She stayed in the organization. She grew very quickly, but at one point she just had to go, wait, why am I here again? I did this as a way to pay for college. Now I've been here for 20-something years.
Yeah, absolutely. 觉得其实还有一些问题你可以问自己，就是 Am I in the right role? Am I in the right position? 我现在这个 position, 我现在这个工作角色是否还是我要的？它对我的 future career 是不是有用的？ am I positioned for the future career that I actually want? Because 我相信每个人工作每3年或者是每5年，你大概会需要重新思考一下这个问题。
The next set of questions that you need to ask yourself are less about leaving the job, but what are your reasons for staying? Meaning, is there valuable experience still left in this current career. Or again, maybe you find that you are on the right path, you are on the right trajectory, but you're just tired of that situation, whether it's an interpersonal thing, it's a corporation thing. So one of the questions you can ask yourself is, can anything be fixed? Is there anything that I can do to actually improve this situation rather than leave the job?
然后我也发现，其实并不是所有的人，可能稍微年轻一点的听众们，并不是所有的人都会觉得这个步骤是有意义的，但是 it actually is so important. Talk to your manager or talk to your boss before you decided just to leave. Is there something that can be changed? 也就是如果你有个真的很大的一个问题 it bothers you. 这件事情真的是让你没有办法每天开心的去工作。Talk to your boss, talk to your manager. 那我也知道 Nick 他其实有一些 stories, right? Stories from other people that you can share.
After working with hundreds of companies, one of the most common topics that we get asked about is employee retention, especially for startups. When they're moving fast, there's a lot of hiring and firing. But one thing that I just want to kind of share is that if you're in any kind of company, you always have to remember that your boss is human, which means a lot of times they're just focused on executing and getting their work done. And if there's any problems, whether it's interpersonal in the office, it's usually not a personal, like they don't like you. It's just they're busy working or they're focusing on what they think it takes to grow the company. So there's a lot of startups we've worked with where they have high employee turnover, especially among very young employees, whether they're just graduating, where if they get upset, if they don't like something, they'll just send a text message saying, I quit, I'm not coming tomorrow. And this is incredibly frustrating to the founders of these companies because they're willing to have the conversation. And as I said, they're so focused on their work, sometimes it is blindsiding them. They didn't realize that was a problem, but they're 100% willing to fix it. And when people don't give an opportunity for the conversation, you don't have opportunity to change company culture. You don't have an opportunity to adjust the working environment. And that can be incredibly frustrating to the point where a lot of founders that I've worked with refuse to hire anyone below the age of 30. Simply because that process of not being able to have a conversation becomes so frustrating to them that they're like, I'm just going to have someone who can have an adult conversation with me. And that's quite a shame because both sides could really learn something from each other. So just be willing to have that conversation.
那其实有的时候当然并不一定你们一定会有个 solution, right? For example, 当我那时候在 Burberry 工作的时候 the reason why I had to quit is because I needed visa. Like, I only had 1 year of visa. I needed visa that would last a lot longer so I could stay. 但是当时我就是跟我的 manager 先谈一下，就说 Okay, I really need visa. Is there anything that you can do? 那个时候他就跟我说 I'm so sorry.Nothing I can do right now for the sales position for this particular industry. 所以那个时候我们就是有一个共同的一个 we kind of acknowledge that there's really nothing that we can do. 所以我们那时候就 move on, 然后我就很顺利的提出辞职 but we kept in contact for many years because we didn't hurt each other's feelings. Everything was kind of smooth.
Right. Whereas you're like, you didn't go in and go, can't give me a visa. I'm out.
Exactly.
I quit.
Yeah.
This doesn't work. That person becomes your ally. And, short of really, really hating each other, for the most part, your old bosses, if you transition smoothly, can be your ally going forward. So let's get into how do I actually quit? I've thought through, my career position isn't going where I want it to. There are certain things that cannot be solved on either side of the boss. How do I quit smoothly?
那这个部分呢有2个重点我们一定要先知道，也就是第一个 cut to the chase, don't beat around the bushes, 一针见血，你就是2句话你就可以把它讲完。And then, you don't absolutely need to be 100% truthful, 因为有的时候可能这个老板就可能他是你辞职的原因。Alright, let's be honest. But 在你辞职的时候，你千万不用说 it's your fault.
Right. This is about creating a potential ally. If you have an interpersonal problem with your boss, they're not going to be shocked that you want to leave, but you don't need to make that, a Hollywood movie scene where you throw all the stuff around and give an impassioned speech. A lot of times it's good just to move on for everybody. So there's a few phrases that you can use in order to describe straight to the point and as smoothly as possible. For example, I've decided to move on to the next chapter of my career, and I'm committed to making this transition as smooth as possible.
Or you can say, I've decided to embark on my personal journey to start a business, and I'm committed to making this transition as smooth as possible. I'm sorry if this comes as a surprise.
So with these phrases, straight to the point, you're being polite and offering to make a transition as smooth as possible. What happens if you want to give a little bit more detail? Or again, you know that your boss is not just going to be like, yeah, okay, you can go. But you want to explain where you're coming from. You could use phrases like this. I've given a lot of thought to where I want to be in my career, and I don't think I can get where I want to be by staying in this position. I've gained a lot of valuable experience, but it's time for me to move on.
Or you can definitely say, I think this position has brought me a lot of new insights. However, I've always dreamed of starting my own business, and this feels like the right time to get started.
In these phrases, we've specifically used things like, I don't think I can get where I want to be in this position, or I feel it is the right time to get started. When you focus more on your needs, your goals, it's harder for them to argue with you. For example, if you go into blame mode or you go into pointing fingers like, oh, this doesn't change, this is wrong, this is bad, then it becomes a debate about what can be fixed, but not a happy debate about what can be fixed. When you're phrasing this and you focus like, this is where I want to go with my career, this is where I want to build my business, they can't argue with the way that you think or you feel. Now they may have questions, but they cannot be like, your feeling is wrong. This is a terrible time for you to start a business, because that's your insight.
所以就算你可能跟这个老板的关系不是那么的好，也可能是你要辞职的一个原因之一。但是如果你这个时候把辞职的原因 direct at 你的职场、你的 career path， 或者是你 personal 的一些原因，你的成长跟你希望以后要开公司啊等等，那这些其实你的老板是没有办法 say no, right? They should be really happy for you and for these changes.
In our first examples, we talked about transition. It's really important that as part of your quitting plan, that you make it clear that you want to help transition. Now, sometimes legally in your contract, you have to give them a certain amount of notice, usually 2 weeks notice, 3 weeks notice. So it's not arbitrary. You must follow the contract unless you can work something else out. But actually having a plan and going, okay, over the next 2 weeks, here's how I will transition my work will always help make it easier rather than your boss just feeling like, again, they've been hit, blindsided by a truck and they don't know what to do.
那有很多不同的 career advice coaches 他也会说 2 weeks notice 是最 standard 你可以 offer to spend a little bit more time maybe 1 week extra 所以其实大家都是说大概3个礼拜是最多的那有很多人说2个礼拜就好了你就不用再多留了 You know, it may get really awkward after that So 我觉得这可能是跟不同的公司跟不同的文化是有一些关系的
The last piece of advice we have is back to maintaining relationships. You've probably talked to your boss, hopefully that everything went smoothly, but what about your other coworkers? There may be people you want to keep in touch with, whether it's higher up in the chain or even lower in the chain, that are good to maintain. The Harvard Business Review Guide talked about this as well, is give personal notes or pull people aside individually that you actually want to stay in touch with.
So just be very explicit about how you want to keep in touch with them. And again, this is networking. This is going to be good for your career.
Well, we hope that you enjoyed this discussion on the opposite of getting a job, how to leave your job. And if you're interested in more topics like this, stop by our Facebook or Instagram and leave us a note so we know more about what you want to hear.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
如果你喜欢我们的 podcast 欢迎来追踪我们的主管英文 Executive Plus 的 Facebook 那也可以写信到我们的信箱yourcareerplus@gmail.com